Hello and welcome to Center for Victory's podcast of Your Best Day Yet. At Center for Victory, we're here to help unlock, reinforce, and enrich relationships through personal and professional development. I'm Eric Guy, your host, also the Chief Victory Officer here at Center for Victory. Back once again in the studio, we have our Chief Joy Officer, Miss Faith Guy, also my daughter. Okay. Today, we're going to be going over some of the things that we've learned over the past few weeks and get Faith's, get some of your feedback. This came out of a question that you asked during a webinar today. So just for those of you that are just tuning in and may not know what I'm talking about, we did a community vision day with folks, about 50 folks, a little over 50 folks from our community, just went through some of the assessments that we do, did some goal setting, did our vision boards, things like that, real cool stuff. And then we, as a follow-up, we have created some webinars to follow up after that. So that was in January. We've done a couple follow-ups. One of the ones that we did actually this morning, pre-recording of this, is we went over the values index with folks. That's an assessment that measures motivation, values, really your why. Faith wasn't the only one, but several people had great questions on those. And, some of to help people understand really what their why is, what they're passionate about, what they should be, what we say running from or running towards, and just how that plays out, even in your life plans, in goal setting, and just what you're trying to do, either in your job, your family, your community. Okay, so I thought we'd dive in a little bit to that. So for those of you that may not be familiar with that, the values index has 7 different areas of value, right, or motivation. We have the aesthetic, which is all about harmony and peace, right? Is that one of your highest?
No, that's not one of my highest.
It's your mother.
Yeah.
Okay. Then, what's the next one? There is economic. So that's more on return on investment, kind of motivation, where a person will tend to be a little bit more competitive, driven, and have that as part of their game plan. There's the individualistic piece.
That's one of my highest. That's one of your highest too, though.
Which is more like, if you think Frank Sinatra, hey, I did it my way, when it's really high, when that motivation is really high.
Right.
There's political, which has nothing to do with political affiliation, political party affiliation. It's about the need to lead or the responsibility to kind of take charge of things in your life. So that was 4, right?
Yeah.
So then we have altruistic, which we'll talk about. That's the one you wanted to get into today. You asked good questions, even on the webinar, that you haven't asked me ever before, even. So
yeah, they kind of just pop up sometimes. I think every once in a while.
And so that's just motivation to serve. And then we have regulatory and theoretical. So regulatory meaning more like structure. When that's high, when it's a high motivator, you need structure. Or provide structure. That would be a good person who provides structure or something, whether it be a project manager or a teacher. I can think of somebody that's an administrator in a school, putting together things for the teachers below them. And then theoretical. So that's kind of what the light bulbs went off for you. I was actually excited when you made the connection between all 3 of your motivators, because you have a high theoretical. Mine's not high, right? But your aha, having a high theoretical, is just really knowledge for knowledge's sake.
Yeah.
I like knowledge, but I don't need to go get my PhD. I'm not running to get that. I think it would be cool. But there's not the motivation there, right?
Yeah.
I'd rather read a book, get the information, and go help people. But it's high for you. And the example that we used is I might not see it. That doesn't mean that I can't support it.
Right.
Right. So because it doesn't motivate me doesn't mean
right.
that it doesn't motivate you.
I think what we talked about this morning was just because, like with the doctorate example, I've been talking about wanting to get mine. I mean, master's first and doctorate, but I think it was the fact that I'm going back because I want to go back, not because somebody told me to do it. It's just that that's what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
That's how I feel I can best help people. And since my altruistic is so high, so to be able to do that in my own way, providing the knowledge that I have, that's like the three that I have.
Yeah. But we wanted to talk about the altruism piece.
Right.
Okay. And before we get into that, just wanted a little side note. This podcast is brought to you through Safety Integration today. Look them up. Good friend of mine runs that company, does a lot of safety training, good stuff for companies, helps out a lot. So thanks, Greg, for supporting the podcast. We really appreciate you.
Hey, Greg.
So back to the altruism piece. So that's high for you. That's high for me. It's actually high for everybody in our family. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And a lot of our friends.
Yeah. But I think when we talk about that, there's no good or bad with that. It's just, that's one of the things that we value. Mm-hmm. But we value not only as a company, but as a family. So when we dip into that place where we talk about not just taking a values index, but what your values are, mm-hmm. like what you want in people and what you see in people. And then when we look at that altruism piece, right, that has become for us, for our family and the company, that has become a main pillar of one of our actual core values, mm-hmm. right? That altruism. So I know you like to help people. I certainly do. That's not all beneficial, because sometimes, as we learned today in that webinar, you have to learn to say no.
Yeah. And I thought it was funny because we're talking about altruism. You said something, they would help people anytime, anywhere. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And then I was like, yeah, I'd help anybody everywhere. And you went, maybe it's not, you shouldn't be saying you should help anybody everywhere. I was like, oh, crap. It's like a trick question. Yeah. Like dug myself a deeper hole with that one.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's really, and I've always joked with you guys, I wish it wasn't so high for me.
Sometimes. Yeah. It'd be nice.
Yeah. Because I've had to say no, just because you can doesn't mean you should. You can only help so many people, but when you do that, you want it to be quality. And if I'm just helping everybody, then that's not going to work. Okay. I have to be fresh and take care of myself. And that's what one of our participants today had said, like, I need to stop. I need to say yes to me, is what she said. And hers is really high. Hers is almost as high as mine. So, but I know there were a couple of things that you wanted to talk about. Was there anything specific about that altruism value, or how that applies into our core values? Because I know, one of our core values for our family inside the company is what we call be like Fred. Right?
The best.
Right. And for those of you that are outside the Pittsburgh area,
they should know. There's no excuse.
You should probably know who Mr. Rogers is, right? But that's who we named that after. So be like Fred, for our core value inside of our company, is about, treating each other with respect, kind of having a no BS attitude. So, the politics of, and the bureaucracy of back and forth, talking behind each other's back, that doesn't fly. Right. It's a core value. We actually measure it inside the company. But a lot of the people that are in our inner circles, in our family, in our groups, in our tribe, believe in that.
But I think it's also, I agree with that, but I think it's also more of an empathy that we have. Like, it takes an emotional intelligence to be like Fred, because everything he did, and since I've studied him as he was as an educator, is his intentionality with every choice, every word, everything he did and stood for and said was intentional. And I think it comes back to when we become aware of our values and our, what's our why, we can be more intentional with our relationships and with, the people, or at least for my lens, the people around us, but also with ourselves. because he was not somebody to be different on camera than he was off camera.
Right.
And I think that's the cool part. I mean, I could go on and on. That's like a whole nother soapbox. But I think what's cool about our community and about our family is that we're always prioritizing intentional decisions that help other people. It's not just helping other people the way we wanted to help them, it's how they actually needed to be helped. And I think that goes into your platinum role of treat others how they need to be treated.
How they need to be treated. Yeah.
Right. And yeah, I think that overall kind of explains how altruism feels to me based on, our community and our family.
Yeah. So let me just give you the snippets of what we came up with years ago for that core value. Be like, Fred, what it means to us as a company, and then of course to your mom and I of what we see as, really how we've raised you and tried to incorporate that in your lives as well. So be like Fred, kind-hearted, selfless, personable, empathetic, listens and hears others. That's more for your mother than for me.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Heart for people, servant leader, family oriented, and loyal. I can't tell you. I mean, I have that as down in all caps, that loyal piece.
Mm-hmm.
All right. When you have that loyalty, there's trust, there's a bond there. And then we have some bullet points underneath that: healthy emotions. We don't compare. So the bullet point is comparison kills.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, a lot of siblings will compare themselves to each other. You guys, or you and your brother, were very unique. It's not one's better than another or anything like that. Healthy loyalty. What we say in our company is love us or leave us.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of have that in a lot of my relationships too, because that's how I am. I mean, you know where you stand in a relationship with me. I mean, I love you or I'm done. Healthy motives, culture of team, no personal agenda. Again, going back to that, Mr. Rogers thing,
mm-hmm.
comfortable and vulnerable. And what he always did was build people up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's our last bullet point. And as you were saying, the intentionality around it, that's why I wanted to come back to this. We proactively strive to equip others and each other.
Mm-hmm.
So we're intentional, we're proactive. What does that mean to you throughout your lifetime?
Which part? Do you want me to?
Like any of that? Like what, when you talk about that, you have, I mean, for those that are listening, you have studied Fred Rogers.
A lot.
And you got into it more when you went to college. And this has been our core value. So, I mean, you've heard it. You've grown up watching some of his episodes and things like that. Let me just focus this in onto one question instead of just all these random questions. Why is it so important
to be like Fred?
To be like Fred.
Ooh, I think I liked the broad question. That might have been easier. No. So I guess I'll shout out. You mind if I shout out the book? Because that's kind of where it started. Was it's a book by these two amazing Pittsburgh authors, and they took 3 years to study Fred and just his impact on like education and the framework that he produced for his show, but also for every relationship he had. It's called When You Wonder, You're Learning. And that book kind of spiraled me into, you read a book and you're like, oh man, this really changed me because I'm reading and it's probably good for me. But it was more of just like wow, I'm really fascinated with why are we so fascinated with this one man? What about him is so, I don't know, groovy is what I've kind of been saying recently, so I'm going to roll with it. So he is just kind of groovy. Yeah, you know how it goes.
Back to the 70s.
Yeah, I have been watching that 70s show, so that's probably why. But I think what's so fascinating about him is he knew who he was, and even when it was not favored, the choices that he made. Well, I think of the episode with the officer where they washed each other's feet, and I think of the episode where he was with the child in a wheelchair, and he's saying like, "It's you I like. It's not your wheelchair. It's not." I think of those episodes, and I think that's what I want to be like in all my relationships. I don't want people to feel that they're less than or that their differences are bad, but that they're great.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to be, for my position, to be an educator, to be a friend, to be a daughter, to be every role that I play, I have to put into context the fact that everybody is different. So what am I doing to help people realize that's a good thing? Because I think when we see differences, we shy away instead of run towards. And it's important. I know for my students right now, especially because I have middle school, I know that they are shying away from the things that kind of make them tick. And it's like, no, you shouldn't do that. There's no reason to do that. So being like Fred for me right now, and I think it's changed over time a little bit, but it always comes back to how are you encouraging people to realize that they're awesome just the way they are? Like, it's you I like. That's what I come back to is one
To
song.
encourage people. Say that again.
Oh man, I don't even know what I said.
It's good.
Encourage people to
help them understand how awesome they are.
Yeah.
That's good.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thought of it myself. I forgot it myself, but I remembered it myself again. We're back.
Well, I think it's important. And again, I want to go back to this intentionality piece, right? Because it's something that, again, I'm not perfect at it. I just, I was reading off the Be Like Fred thing, and, hears and listens. Kind of tough sometimes, for me. I've practiced it. I've went to school for it. But I want to do that. That's the difference. Like, we're not always all going to be perfect, but if we strive towards that and become more intentional, what we've done with, when I say we, your mother and I, what we've done with you guys, your brother and you, and it's just to really teach you how to do that. Right. Here's why we're doing this for somebody. This is, and that the Vision Day actually really scratched a big itch for your mother and I. I mean, that was a goal.
Right.
But that's pretty cool when you can align your goals around your values, because we were both on the same page with that. And it was a lot of fun. But, one of the things, so I grew up with Mr. Rogers as well, watching Mr. Rogers and things. And I think what the impression that was left with me was always how joyful he was, right?
Yeah.
When you're doing that, when you're in service to others, it's you I like. Yeah, I really like you, not just giving it lip service.
Yeah, it's authentic.
Right. Yeah, it's very authentic, and his encouragement for other people to be that way.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, he was, he was cutting edge on some of the things that he was presenting about how we should treat one another. I mean, these are things that we're struggling with today. Some of those things were like, oh man, what's this crazy dude on TV doing? Right. And that's how some people saw it. But
some people still see it that way.
Some people do see it that way. Yeah, you're right. But it's so nice. I guess what I'm trying to say is it's so nice to be in a place where, you can see people as awesome too. Right. But you have to understand you're just as awesome.
Right.
And bring that out in everybody else. And that comes from that kind of servant heart, that altruism, that, hey, look, I need to be in service. It's not what you can do for me. It's what can I do for you?
Yeah.
Is that what you were going to say?
Yeah, I was. And I was going to say too, this year, like, I know we do, speaking of Vision Day, we always have a word of the year.
Yeah.
And mine last year was joy. And that's when I started, studying Fred Rogers, like hardcore. And that goes with all the teacher friends that I have, encouraging me to study him and how they're fascinated with him. And it gives me hope for teachers and for kids in the future, is that, we have educators out there that are exemplifying who Fred is and was. And I think, honestly still is. I try to use present tense because it gives me more hope than was. But this year it's goodness, and it's based on, the quote by him that's try your best to make goodness attractive. That's one of the toughest assignments you'll ever be given. And I think it goes back to that point of, it's not always easy to be a servant leader, especially, when that person, when you're giving 100 and you are just trying to expect nothing in return. Sometimes it's harder than, it probably should be. But I think what's cool about, our Vision Day is that was a goal for you. And then you did try to make goodness attractive. And now we have things that are just more opportunities and more people asking questions and more people exemplifying Fred. And it's like, that was the goal in the first place, is how do we build an understanding of altruism in a way that legacy for us was led.
Yeah. What else would you tell people about that? Like why I guess how and why is it so important? You know, I mean, I have my answers for that, obviously, but
I mean, I think back to my church group on campus at Westminster, and the one day, I don't know why we were just kind of sitting there talking about what's the biggest problem we face nowadays. And, people are like throwing out answers. And one guy, it wasn't even me, I'm not even taking credit for it, but one guy there was like, I think we're too self centered. And it sounds very cynical and maybe like an old man or something. I don't know. But mentally, maybe that's where I'm at. But I think we live in a very self absorbed world where we set our own rule book to our own agenda. So, how does it benefit us? But I think we would have a lot less problems if we focus on how would it benefit somebody else. And I think it's hard because I look at these kids and I look at, their home lives, and I have kids who have it real rough, like just I can't even fathom the things that they've been through. And it's why hasn't someone stepped up sooner for them and been there for them? It honestly, it fires me up. It grinds my gears really. But I think if you have the choice to make goodness attractive, why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah.
Because at that point, then you're just going to live in that regret of never doing it.
Right. And that goes back to you talking about being more intentional, proactively doing that, proactively looking for a place to, this might be good.
Yeah.
Hopefully this comes out good. Looking for a place to put your heart and use it.
And there shouldn't be fear in doing what's best for other people.
Yeah.
And it's not like, stepping on their toes, but it's, it's even like the little things. Because I feel like I've watched you open mom's car door, and I've watched like stuff, I don't know, other people's families do stuff like that too, and that we're around. It's like, okay, so it's really not that hard to be intentional about every choice you make. It's just sometimes it takes more brain power than we'd like to give it.
Or just smiling at somebody, giving somebody a hug, or just very simple things to be more intentional about. I mean,
and I think too, to listen more than you share your opinion, because, and that goes back to, I think it's a Maya Angelou quote where she's like, people won't remember you for what you say, but how you make them feel. And that's again with Fred, it's not like we're quoting every episode, but we know how we felt when we sat down and we felt that peace when we watched every episode.
Right.
And that's what you should provide for people, is that consistency and that acceptance of, hey, you are loved and capable of loving. That's all you need to know right now. As long as you're resting in that fact, you're doing altruism pretty well.
Okay. Well, that's good stuff. I mean, I did want to close with that quote again. So what was it? Try your best to make goodness attractive.
Yeah, that's the toughest assignment you'll ever be given.
Okay, say the whole thing for us.
Now, I don't know if that's the official quote, but that's what we're going to roll with.
Try your best to make goodness attractive.
Yeah,
that's the best decision you can make.
Toughest assignment you'll ever be given. Because that's based on his wife. I think it's in the foreword of that When You Wonder book.
I can't remember.
When she talks about the toughest thing for Fred to ever do was to be himself, like to work on himself, and that he was flawed and he still tried to push through it. And like she talks about that part, and that goes into, try your best to make goodness attractive. That's the toughest assignment you'll ever be given.
Wow. Good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thanks for coming back to the studio, seeing your dad. It's always good to see you. I hope y'all enjoyed that. That's all for today. I appreciate you watching. We'd also appreciate it if you'd hit that subscribe button. And if you want more information, please visit us at centerforvictory.com. And remember, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, make this your best day yet. We'll see you next time.